But let's look at something else. Was Muhammad a violent person, sallallahu alayhi wasallam? Did he just attack people for the sake of attacking? It doesn't make sense. Why? Because his book that he's preaching, Al-Quran Al-Kareem, and the message that he claimed that came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which he abides by, says in Surah Al-Baqarah verse 190, وَقَاتِلُوا فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يُقَاتِلُونَكُمْ وَلَا تَعْتَدُوا إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُعْتَدِينَ. Al-Quran Al-Kareem, Muhammad's book, he says, follow this book, and this book is telling him, do not transgress. Do not attack. So how could he go against his book? Doesn't make sense. His book also said, Al-Quran Al-Kareem told Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قُلْ يَا أَهْلَ الْكِتَابِ تَعَالَوْا إِلَى كَلِمَةٍ سَوَاءٍ بَيْنَنَا وَبَيْنَكُمْ أَلَّا نَعْبُدَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ وَلَا نُشْرِكَ بِهِ شَيْئًا. The Quran is telling him, tell the people around you, come let's talk. Come let's talk. ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة. The book is telling him, talk to people. Engage in dialogue, not engage in fights. The troublesome part for the superpowers back then was ألا نعبد إلا الله ولا نشرك به شيئا ولا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله. Let's talk and discuss about what? Very important element, about freedom. ألا يتخذ بعضنا بعضا أربابا من دون الله. Because back then there were people enslaving each other, taking advantage of one another. But what the book of Quran, what Muhammad ﷺ came with as a message is, no more enslaving one another. Give people the freedom to speak, the freedom to express themselves, even the freedom to follow or not to follow my own message. This is exactly what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in the Holy Quran that Muhammad ﷺ preached. لا إكراه في الدين. قد تبين الرشد من الغي. There's no compulsion in religion. So how could Muhammad ﷺ preach a message that says no compulsion in religion, and he goes and asks people to convert by sword? Doesn't make sense. That's the problem. People are not using common sense when they read. But just because they're ignorant, some of them they're blinded by hatred. How could a man go against his own message? His message says something and you're accusing him of saying something else? Huge problem. No mind will accept that problem. How could the Quran that told Muhammad وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ, you were sent nothing but mercy to human beings, how can he be violent? If his Lord ordered him and informed him that he was sent as mercy to human beings, this man cannot be violent. Another important point of attack is al-jizya. Someone would say, but look at the tax. Al-jizya that was laid on non-Muslims in the Islamic world was very humiliating. They had to pay tax, extra taxes, and they had to do it in a humiliating way. And they have to be humiliated in the way when they submit their tax. That's not true. That's absolutely not true. The jizya as a program was one of the best social security systems for the citizens of the Muslim country that did not believe in the Muslim religion. Very fair and very merciful. What is al-jizya? To keep it simple to all of us, al-jizya is a tax paid by the able person, able physically and able financially. The person that's able to fight. Because we said that area was surrounded by tensions, surrounded by superpowers that wanted eat one another, surrounded by vicious attackers. So any state should be always ready to defend itself. Now when Islam entered the region around it, they never forced anybody to convert out of their religion. And it's no. However, they put a tax saying, if you are able to fight, mainly a man in an age of physical ability to fight, you pay us a tax. But no woman shall pay that tax, no weak person shall pay that tax, no sick person shall pay that tax, no old person, no young person would pay a jizya. It's the able man able to fight. For that tax, you don't have to fight. We will defend you. We will defend you. It's not an obligation for you to join the army. I think that's a good deal. And if there's no fight, that money is kept for you as a social security when you're old. So if you get old, this money will be spent on you. Is that humiliation or dignifying to humans? I think it's dignifying. And the proofs are many. Kitab al-Dhimma, Rasulullah spoke about defending Ahl al-Kitab clearly. Resources are there available for everybody to read. The story of Al-Hira, Khalid bin Walid, when he entered the area of Hira, it was clear to them when he wrote to them and said, فَإِن لَمْ يَمْنَعْهُمْ فَلَا شَيْءٌ عَلَيْهِ حَتَّى يَمْنَعُهُمْ. If I don't defend you, you're not obligated to pay anything. The tax is for defense. Clear. Another story, famous story of Abu Ubaidah, when his troops went to Sham, and the people of Sham accepted the jizya, the one that did not accept Islam accepted the jizya. They collected the money. It was a lot of money. But then they knew that the ruler of Rome was ready to attack them with a huge army. Abu Ubaidah said, we need to focus on this army so we cannot protect this area anymore. What did they do? They returned the tax. Who did that in history? A powerful, victorious army being so just and merciful and returning the money to the weak ones. They returned the tax saying, we're sorry, we took this tax from you in exchange for defense, but we're sorry we cannot do it right now. Here's your money back. Books of history says they were praying for the victory of Muslims, and they were praying that the Muslims would come back and rule them with this justice. The famous story of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he saw an old Jewish man in Medina that was not able to pay al-jizya, and then he told him, I'm weak and I'm poor. What did Umar radiallahu anhu say? He took his hand and he went to Bayt Mal al-Muslimin, asking them, to the Ministry of Finance, asking them to pay him a wage, a salary. And he said, فَوَاللَّهِ مَا أَنصَفْنَاهُ إِنْ أَكَلْنَا شَبِيبَتَهُ ثُمَّ نَخْدِلَهُ عِنْدَ الْهَرَمِ. Oh Allah, by Allah, we will not be just if we took tax from him while he was able and young, and now we leave him as a weak person. We shall pay him social security. The third proof that Islam was never spread by the sword is the fact that any ideology that was spread by the sword resulted in the extermination of the people that refused to accept the message of the victorious, and also resulted in the total destruction of their places of worship. If we examine the areas where Islam have ruled for the past 1400 years, we will clearly see religious minorities living in peace and safely practicing their religion in their places of worship. As mentioned, people were given the choice to accept the message or reject it. This is evident in Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Palestine, Iraq, and other Muslim majority countries where Christians, Jews, and other religious minorities were allowed to keep their churches and places of worship and were allowed to build new ones. They are still there up to this day. In other countries such as India, Muslims ruled the land for over 800 years and never uprooted other religions and their places of worship. Today, Muslims make up less than 20% of the total Indian population, a country where they once ruled. That says a lot about the non-violent spread of Islam. In the Far East, Malaysia and Indonesia, with the largest Muslim population on earth, and many other countries in Africa are more living proofs of the peaceful spread of Islam. We all know that no Muslim army was deployed to any of these countries. Islam spread through the values and the manners of the Muslim merchants, and definitely not spread by the sword. In conclusion, it's now clear to all of us that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was not a warlord, and the battles that took place during the time of his prophethood and leadership as a head of state were nothing but defensive battles aimed to protect the people, the property, and the message. And this is what a good leader would do. Finally, the noted British historian born in 1872, Delassie O'Leary, in his famous book, Islam at the Crossroads, he wrote, "History makes it clear that the legend of fanatical Muslims sweeping through the world and forcing Islam at the point of the sword upon conquered races is one of the most fantastically absurd myths that historians have ever repeated. Indeed, it's an absurd myth that a lot of people are repeating. Islam did not spread through the sword. Islam spread by justice, dignity to all humans, freedom and moral message, compassion and mercy, and most importantly, through logic. It made sense to a lot of people. It touched the hearts and the minds of a lot of people, and that's how Islam spread.